Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, your ticket to all things college football. Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? Join us as we talk college football from the national championship to college rivalries to bowl games to the Heisman Trophy to which conference is the best. We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between.
What's going on, everybody? It is the GSMC College Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. I am their host, Ethan Orfe, ready to go and ready to talk about some college football. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, as much as you possibly could. You know, if you're in a state that allows you to go out and do some stuff, I hope you did some stuff safely, but I had a good time. Over the weekend, I did some adventuring. I did some hiking. It was a lot of fun, you know. My knees may not think it was a lot of fun, but personally, it was a riveting experience. I saw some waterfalls. I took some photos. You know, I'm an amateurist photographer trying to be better at that craft over this quarantine, this social distancing kind of break. I don't want to say it's a break, but kind of feels like a break for a lot of people as far as the working class who has not returned back to work. So it has been quite something to look into. So hiking was cool, and I got some Mexican food. Nice little spot. All right. But as far as college football goes, we do have quite a bit to go over today. We're going to be talking about, you know, strength of schedule stuff. So we're getting into the nitty gritty. We're about to go over some strength of schedules. We got to talk about the University of Texas and just the impact that a lot of student athletes from different universities are putting different amounts of pressure on different universities about changes that they can make for the betterment of, you know, society. The aim of college football starting date. We're getting closer and closer to what the actual picture for college football is going to look like. And of course, you know, the signature ending of all of our podcasts here that we try to do every few weeks or so is concession confessions, you know. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about the food game one more time again. But first, our first segment of the day, in our first few segments of the day, I should say, is about the ACC. We're going to be talking about the top 10 players of the ACC, the Athletic Coast Conference. So, you know how we do things here. We start from bottom up. So, here we go. Number 10 is a quarterback out of Miami, D'Eriq King. So, D'Eriq King, he kind of had a whirlwind of 2019. And he decided to redshirt the season after starting out 1-3 and return to compete in 2020. After sitting out the year, King decided to transfer to Miami, which has been ecstatic to land him. King really didn't play that great in his previous offense, and he recorded a 59.9 passing grade in his 4 starts. However, you have to consider his 2018 campaign. If King is able to replicate that season, he can easily be one of the top quarterbacks in the country. That year, King finished with the second highest overall grade in his position at 91.2, which ranked behind only Kyler Murray. So King has a great athleticism and can bring value to the rushing attack, as he has generated an explosive rush over a quarter of his carries for the past 2 years. A lot of King's success in 2018 came off of play action passing. And with that change in scheme, we saw his play action usage rate drop over 20% in 2019. In other words, integrating, play action should be the best case scenario for Miami if they want to try and get the best out of Derek King, but he is number 10 on the list. Number 9 is DeMarvin Wilson out of Florida State. So on top of already having the two best running defensive linemen overall in Roach and Humph, the ACC has the best returning interior defensive lineman in the country in Florida State's Marvin Wilson. He could easily be declared for the NFL 2020 draft. He could have, but as he wanted to be considered a first-round prospect. But an injury in his final weeks may have made Wilson cautious to declare, and over the past 2 seasons, Wilson's 2-year Pro Football Focus grade ranks the 3rd best at his position, and his best plays were made in the pass rush, where he was 2nd highest graded at his position in 2019. The most impressive part of his play was, in fact, that he thrives at multiple alignments on the interior. So this is the same guy who recently took a stand against his head coach for basically calling him out, saying that he did not deliver on what he said about speaking to all the players. So if you're wondering, yes, this is the same guy, and yes, he is still that talented. All right, so number 8 is cornerback Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's Caleb Farley made one of the biggest year-to-year improvements this past season. So he improved on the Pro Football Focus coverage grade from 59.3 to 90.3, making him the lone defensive back on that list. The missed tackles are still a concern, but fairly improved in every single significant statistical category for a defensive back. So in 2018, he played 357 coverage snaps, and in 2019, he added about 20 more. And for targets, he faced 54 targets 2018, and he only faced 50 last year, but he only allowed 18 catches comparative to his 32 from 2018 and 2019. He allowed 463 yards in 2018, and he allowed 257 yards last year. He only allowed 1 touchdown in 2019 to 4 in 2018. His forced incompletion percentage went up to 24% from 18%, and his passer rating allowed was 26.8% from a 96.5% rating. So, it fairly forces opposition into a contested situation. It was incredibly difficult to win. On his 50 targets, 20 were contested, and he allowed just 5 to be caught. Just 2 for a first down, while fairly intercepted a pair and forced 12 as incompletion. So he improved really drastically and rapidly over a season. So you can only expect him to keep going. Number 7, Chris Humph II from Duke. Only true diehard, really college football fans know who Chris Humph or Chris Roof is. And it's okay if you don't. The greatest thing about, Pro Football Focus and other places is that they give you hidden gems. And most importantly, they give credit to underrated players. Roach is one of the best edge defenders returning to the ACC and the number 1 returning defensive lineman in the country. But the man is second in both categories is Duke Rumph, who produced the 2nd highest overall grade in the country last season, making plays against the run and in the pass rush. Most important job for an edge defender is rushing the passer, and there isn't anyone near Rumph when it comes to win rate and pressure rate. Watching him creep over the interior offensive line as a linebacker and busting through the gaps right after snap is just a beautiful sight to see. He is a supreme talent, and he'll definitely on the radar as somebody who you need to be paying attention to, even if he does play on Duke. Another person to look for is wide receiver Tutu Atwell from Louisville. He's 5'9", so he's not that tall and weighing just over 150 pounds. He is one of college football's most underrated receivers, and Atwell, he ran a 4.33 40-yard dash a couple years ago and is lethal after the catch. As a result, he was used extensively in the screen game, where he recorded the highest receiving grade at 93.8, and he's the only receiver above 90 and an impressive 16 yards after the catch per reception. Most of those were jet motion plays, and on those specifically, Atwell averaged 13.2 yards per reception. So not all his production has come on these type of plays, though. He can still separate downfield at a high level, and he has 21 targets coming 10 or more yards downfield in which he was deemed open. So, and he had more than a couple steps of separation among the 20 most in college football. So, just to recap, number 10 is D'Eriq King. Then we have Marvin Wilson. We have Marvin Wilson. We have Caleb Farley. Then we have Chris Rumph II, and then Tutu Atwell. Coming up, we'll go ahead and get right back into it after this break, as we will continue on the top 10 as we have 5 through the top to go. This is the GSMC.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back. This is the GSMC. And Ethan going over what we just finished talking about. So we are going down the ACC's top 10 players returning to the 2020 season. And we just finished with the bottom of the top 10. So 10 to 6. So that was, and I repeat, D'Eriq King out of Miami, the quarterback. We have Marvin Wilson, defensive interior lineman from Florida State, who probably is the best returning interior defensive lineman in the country. And then we have Caleb Farley, the man who is Mr. Improvement out of Virginia Tech, who skyrocketed all, if not all, but every single one except for missed tackles as far as his significant statistical coverage stats. Then we have edge rusher Chris Rumph II, who is one of the best edge rushers in the country, if not the second best. And then we have Tutu Atwell from Louisville, a small wide receiver, but small does not mean not good. And his talent is definitely still very, very sought after, as he's a very fast, very quick receiver that is able to make things happen in space and the space that he is given. So now we're going to go over the top 5, starting from number 5. We have wide receiver Justin Ross out of Clemson. So he wasn't able to exactly replicate his true freshman season from 2018, the past year, in which he was the second highest graded receiver in the country, but Ross was still able to compromise a solid year and added up 2-year WAA to be among the top 10 best in the country at his position. The 6'4" Ross has been one of the best deep threats in college football, ranking second in 2-year receiving grade on targets of 20-plus yards. His size comes in the clutch in these targets, as he's just flat out bodies defensive backs in contested situations, hauling in 9 of 13 such deep targets in his career, and the vertical route tree is clearly his specialty. He's generated third most explosive plays on vertical routes in his career, and T. Higgins may have been gone for Trevor Lawrence, but he still has one of the best in the country at the position in Justin Ross. And then, of course, another Clemson offensive weapon is running back Travis Etienne from Clemson. Now, he could have, of course, declared for the NFL draft, and it was a bit of a shock when he decided not to, but Clemson has been jumping for joy since him returning to the squad in 2020. Running backs generally don't matter at the college level and always don't in the NFL, but Etienne is a rare group that always has generated significant value. So in 2019, Etienne had the second most WWA at his position, barely trailing LSU's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but still was the 7th most WAA by a running back in Pro Football Focus College era, and his 2018 was the 16th most overall. He's been the 4th most valuable college running back that we've seen behind Christian McCaffrey, Kareem Hunt, and Jonathan Taylor. Etienne's elusiveness is almost hard to believe. He broke 90 tackles on 207 carries. That formed a rate that was the highest in college football and led him to earning the highest rushing grade. The big reason why Etienne generated value in 2019 was his vast improvement on the receiving end. He bettered his yards per route ran from 2018 to 2019 by 1.5 yards and dropped fewer balls on more catchable targets. So he improved on his weaknesses, and he's a guy that looks like he might improve even more so. He might even get better, which is a little bit scary. And even though he is a older guy when it comes to the college football scene, I can't imagine that he will not seek to improve even more. And I don't think his draft stock will potentially change just because he stayed a year later than anticipated. So number 3 is Quincy Roche out of Miami. So Miami had a down year in 2019, and we all know this. But however, they got a couple added boosts from the transfer pool this offseason, and one of them lands among the 3 best players in the conference in edge rusher Quincy Roche. Among the 3 best in the conference in edge defender, previously, he was a Temple Owl, and Roche was above average pass rusher in his first 2 seasons as a collegiate action. In 2017 and 2018, ranking 28th in 2-year pass rush grade. And in that stretch, he finished as a fringe top 25 player in win rate and pressure rate. In 2019, though, he took his play to new heights in one of the biggest breakouts we've seen. So he produced a pass rush grade that past season that ranked only behind Chase Young, who is a virtual lock to be taken in the top 3, of course, in the NFL draft at the time. So his wins above average was right there with Chase Young, as well as it was 5th best ever recorded in a single season by edge rusher. Pressure rate is more important than the sack numbers, but Roche killed both categories. His generated pressure on 18% of his reps and was among the 5 highest rates at the position. It will be interesting to see, of course, where Roche will go up in the ACC tackles in 2020, but based off of what we saw in 2019 in his games against Power 5 competition, he should be more than okay. Then, number 2, we have Sam Howell out of North Carolina. And we all know Trevor Lawrence produced the best college freshman season that has ever really been recorded, set back in 2018. But the person right behind him is North Carolina's Sam Howell. The cannon he displayed for the Tar Heels last season was quite absurd, and there were times he threw it over 40 yards downfield with ease. In fact, he had the FBS leading 6 such touchdowns, and even more than Joe Burrow, who had the 2nd most with 5. Howell is a gunslinger which caused him to produce some turnover-worthy throws, but it also resulted in him in posting the 8th highest big-time throw rate among FBS quarterbacks. His play under duress killed him, but, people considered the stability of performance under pressure opposed to being in a clean pocket. A quarterback's performance when free from pressure is the most telling of future performance, and that is an area where Howell thrived, posting the 4th highest passing grade and taking advantage of a situation with deep passes and most 20-plus yard completions. When clean this past season with 32, Justin Fields and Joe Burrow were tied for 2nd with 30. So this guy can really, really sling the football and has a really big cannon arm as well. And he's definitely somebody that we're all going to have to, keep a solid eye on, so to speak. But, of course, the last one and top of the list is no other than quarterback Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. And Trevor Lawrence is the top returning player of the ACC next year, and it shouldn't even be close. And, we all knew this, and there really isn't a thing that he doesn't do well. And he's looking like he'll end up being the best prospect, really, that the metrics have ever seen when it's all said and done about a year from now. And it's definitely worth, tanking for if you're thinking about the future of the draft. So, Pro Football Focus has never seen a true freshman season like what they saw with Trevor Lawrence in 2018. His WAA that year was nearly triple the amount that has been seen since from a first-year quarterback in prior seasons in the college football era, and was second only to the first overall pick, Kyler Murray, that season. So perhaps the best quality of Trevor Lawrence is how great he is in unfavorable situations. He has a superb pocket presence for converting pressure to sacks on just 15% of his career dropbacks, which is a mark that most seniors with NFL aspirations wish they were at. He can create outside of the structure, stay poised, and throw in a pressured pocket with bodies flying at him, and can extend plays with his legs. In fact, he averaged nearly 10 yards per carry on scrambles with that Clemson. Went on to use the athleticism of his in a designed rushing attack in 2019, and he ended up with the fourth highest rushing grade at his position this past year. Remember that the game-changing 67-yard touchdown of Lawrence against Ohio State was a designed rush. Remember that. And just a little teaser of what is to come in his usage. Lawrence's decision-making is already up to the expectations of a number one overall pick, as he has posted a career turnover-worthy play rate that ranks 7th best over the past 2 years, and third of those turnover-worthy plays came in an uncharacteristic 3-game stretch in the start of 2019. Not to mention, he was one of the 2 quarterbacks that ranked in the top 10 in big-time throw rate, in addition to limiting those negative plays. So there you have it. That's your top 10 finished up, ready to go. So Justin Ross, Clemson. Travis Etienne, Clemson. Then we have Quincy Roche, Miami. Then we have Sam Howell, North Carolina. And, of course, Trevor Lawrence at number 1 from Clemson. So we'll be continuing to do more of these, of course, and we'll keep ready to come. But we're going to take another break, and we're going to get into the strength of schedule for the Pac-12. This is the GSMC.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
All right, you're back with the GSMC and your host Ethan here, and we just finished going over top 10 returning ACC players for 2020, and now we're going to dabble back into the Pac. We're going back to the Pac-12, and we're looking at their new schedule, and we're going to be looking at the strengths of their certain schedule. As we all know, the strength of schedule is very, very important in college football, and of course, because of the playoffs, and you have to have meaningful games in order to really, really move up in rankings. And not only do you have to have meaningful games, you have to really, really dominate the games that aren't as meaningful to make a bigger push towards your goals of reaching the top 4 spot and having a chance of going to the national championship. I mean, this only makes sense. And the only way you can really, really have a solid chance year in and year out is playing tough competition. So that's why you see advantages in certain aspects of, the college football, atmosphere and just how rankings are made. You'll see why certain teams end up get more favorable chances than others just because of the strength of schedules within their own conferences. So now without further ado, we're going to be getting into the Pac-12, as the Pac-12 is a bit interesting this year. And reading some few articles, we've seen some interesting things to be takes. So a writer by the name of Tom Fornelli, he wrote and did a lot of work figuring out how to rank the Pac-12, and he has a method to his madness, and we'll go over how he exactly did that. So he ranked all 130 teams using a statistical model that judges teams based off their performances in games, and there's no opinions placed in it, and history often gives the best glimpse into the future. So he used the rankings from previous seasons to get an idea of how good any given team can expect to be in the next season. So teams are given that weight that coincides with their past performance, and these weights are applied when going into each team's schedule. Then you add and subtract additional weights based on when and where and when the game is going to be played. So road games are often more difficult than home games. And for example, a Thursday night game after playing a previous Saturday game adds a degree of difficulty. Playing 8 straight weeks without a bye does as well. So after inputting all that data and numbers, it's produced that show teams' projected strength of schedule. And one thing to keep in mind is that these rankings is that the best teams in the conference are at somewhat of a disadvantage compared to conference mates that do not get to play themselves. And the natural hinders is an SOS against the other programs in the conference that do face it. Conversely, the worst team doesn't play itself, and that impacts the floor of its strength of schedule projection. So what do the scores mean? The overall score is the team's strength of schedule compared to the average strength of schedule of all 130 FBS teams. For example, 21.34% is better than average, and a negative score indicates below average. So Colorado, 39.19% will enter 2020 with the toughest projected schedule among Power 5 teams, while Syracuse at negative 6% will have the easiest in the conference score. It's the same principle, but it's strictly in relation to the average score of schedules within the team's conference. So here we go. Number 1, Colorado at 39% overall in the FBS, and in the Pac-12 it has a 26th percentile strength of schedule. So it ends up the most difficult schedule in the country. Well, first of all, the Pac-12, like the Big Ten and the Big 12, is helped by playing 9 conference games, which really decided things for the Buffs, though it was a lack at the bottom out of their schedule. Colorado State and UCLA are the only opponents in the schedule to fall outside the top 90 in this rating system, and Arizona is the only other opponent outside the top 75 of Colorado's other 9 opponents. 6 are in the top 25 and 8 are in the top 50, and there are no elite programs on that schedule. Though Oregon, Texas A&M, Washington, and USC all have the potential, but there isn't a cupcake to be found either. Second is USC. So USC's home game with New Mexico has a weaker projection than anybody in Colorado's schedule, but its opener against Alabama is easily the toughest game either will play. The result of their schedules are very similar and feature a lot of the same shared opponents. So what's the difference? Well, USC plays Colorado, a team that ranks 96 in the projections made. So Colorado, on the other hand, plays USC, a team that is ranked 21st. In the end, that's what kept USC from being number 1. USC's schedule is tough from the start to finish. They have to finish with Notre Dame, and they start with Alabama. But the most difficult stretch will be in November, where the Trojans have to get Oregon, Washington, and Notre Dame over a 4-week span, with a rivalry game against UCLA between the last 2. And their strength of schedule overall is 32%, and the Pac-12 percentage is 17. So third is Oregon. So unlike the first 2, Oregon has an FCS opponent on its schedule. However, the FCS opponent is North Dakota State, which is the preeminent FCS program of the country. It's not much different from playing another mid-tier Power 5 opponent, and the Ducks also have a home game with Ohio State, giving their projections a major boost. The Ducks will also face Washington and USC in a few, and of course, or at home. And the toughest road game on their schedule is either going to be Cal or Wazoo, and even maybe Oregon State. So that's really why they get put at 3. Number 4 is California. So it's non-conference, isn't that daunting. TCU is a quality opponent, but it's had a couple of down years lately, dragging its projection down. And there are games against UNLV and Cal Poly, which gives the Bears a boost. Aside from their usual division games, they do get to play USC, Utah, Arizona State from the South. Utah has been the best team in the division lately, and Arizona State has been solid, and USC is USC. Add that all together, and you have a pretty solid schedule. Next is Oregon State. So no Pac-12 program carries a lighter weight in these projections than Oregon State, which gives it a bit of an advantage over the North teams. Still, the schedule does feature a non-con on the road against Oklahoma State. And in conference play, the Beavers will have to face Arizona State, Washington, Stanford, and Utah on the road as well. And the home slate sets up far better, though, as they finish with Oregon in the Civil War. So that's what you have so far. And of course, you have Washington coming up. So the Huskies begin the season with Michigan in Seattle, which is one of the heavier weighted non-conference games in the Pac-12. And there's also a game against Utah State program that just outside of the top 50, helping out. What hurts Washington's overall projection compared to the conference mates is that 2 of the 3 games it gets against the South this year are Arizona and Colorado. Neither carries a lot of weight, and however, the road slate is a beast with games against Oregon, Utah, Cal, USC, and Wazoo. So that is the first 6 out of 12, and of course we're going to finish it up in the next break. But I really like looking at these projections because it does add a bit of context rather than just looking at traditional rankings going year to year, and it adds a method to the madness, so to speak. So this is a really, really cool little way of looking at projections across different places, and I'm sure it'll be fun to look at the rest of them as we keep going. But we are going to take, another break within this podcast, this lovely podcast that I love to do. And coming back out, of course, we're going to finish out the rest of the 6 of strength of schedules for the Pac-12. This has been the GSMC, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, so we'll be continuing on with this strength of schedule from the Pac-12 based off this metric made by great writer Tom Fornelli. So the first 6 going down was Colorado had the highest strength of schedule. Then we had USC, then Oregon, then California, then Oregon State, and then Washington. So they all have pretty high strength of schedules overall across the board in college football, and of course in the Pac-12, of course, they rank one after the other. So here we go with number 7. So UCLA is ranked number 7 in this metric, as the Bruins dodged both Oregon and Washington this season, and that hurts their overall projection. Still, they do have 2 respectable non-conference games against Hawaii and San Diego State, why in the world UCLA is playing 2 of its 3 non-conference games on the road is another matter entirely, but the road slate in the Pac-12 isn't horrible. The Bruins hit the road in Arizona State, Colorado, Oregon State, and California, and they'll get tougher games like USC and Utah at home. So they don't have a negative score yet, but they do have a negative score. So they have the first negative score among the Pac-12 that we've seen, and it's at a -3 percentile. So UCLA is starting the trend, and we're going to Washington State next at 8, as Washington State's non-conference includes 2 respectable G5 programs in Utah State on the road and Houston at home. It finishes with a cupcake in Idaho. In the Pac-12, the Cougars avoid USC from the South, but their toughest 2 division games will come in consecutive weeks to finish the season. That's when they'll be playing Oregon and Washington back to back. And at least both have to come to Pullman. So that will be great for Washington State that they get to play those 2 at home, but they do have a -4% in this metric for the Pac-12. Number 9 is Stanford. So a road game against Notre Dame in October carries more weight than any other game on Stanford's schedule, but it's not the only difficult test. The Cardinals will have to play both Oregon and Washington on the road, which doesn't bode well for their North Division title hopes. And they also have USC at home in the 3rd week of the season. So their overall, as far as schedule, is 11.59%. And really that's just because they play Notre Dame, if you really think about it, because, they do play USC. That does take into account a lot, but for the most part, that does add up quite a bit. That takes a large chunk of the notion. Number 10, we have Arizona. So the non-conference starts with Hawaii and Portland State, and we should not forget Arizona lost to Hawaii in Honolulu last year. The road game against Texas Tech should prove challenging as well. In the Pac-12, the Wildcats draw Stanford, Washington, Oregon from the north, and that's not fun. There are opportunities for wins, though, and what lightens Arizona's projections are the games against UCLA, Colorado, and Oregon State, and they're the only 3 Pac-12 programs that carry a lighter weight right now than the Wildcats do. So number 11 is Utah. The Utes opened the season at home with games against BYU and Montana State before finishing the non-conference on the road against Wyoming. Once conference play begins, they'll get both USC and Washington at home, which is a bonus, and miss Oregon entirely. The rest of the schedule includes the 4 lightest teams in the Pac-12, Arizona, Colorado, UCLA, and Oregon State. Playing all 4 of them and not playing Oregon is what caused such a large separation between Utah and Arizona spot ahead of them. So it's crazy. It went from a 9 percentile with overall strength of schedule from Arizona, and it went and dropped down to 1% of strength of schedule for Utah. So then we have finally number 12 with Arizona State. Arizona State has what can be considered the easiest non-conference schedule in the Pac-12. A solid BYU team headlines it, but the Cougars don't carry much weight as they conceivably could, and their 2017 season really hurt their overall rating. And the other 2 teams are Northern Arizona and UNLV, and the Rebels play 2 Pac-12 teams this year, and both are coming to Vegas. So the other thing that hurts Arizona State is that while the Devils have to play Oregon in Eugene, they dodge Washington and Stanford from the north. All in all, this schedule makes Arizona State a more appealing dark horse in the Pac-12 South than it already was. So just an overall rundown. 12 is Arizona State. 11 is Utah. Arizona is 10. Stanford is 9. Washington State is ranked at 8th. UCLA is ranked 7th. Washington is ranked 6th. Oregon State is ranked 5th. California is ranked 4th. Oregon is ranked 3rd. USC is ranked 2nd, and Colorado is ranked 1st. Now remember, strength of schedule, just because somebody has a weak schedule doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. I mean, it won't get you to the college football playoff, of course, more times than not. But what it does do is put you in position to play bigger games down the road. So if you can get to, of course, the conference championship due to playing really well in your conference and doing well and winning your games, that means something, because you will play tougher opponents down the road, and it'll get you a better bowl game and better positioning for the future, as that's how usually things work out. So, of course, the more games you win, the better your projections will be, and so on and so forth. And, of course, we already know why playing a tougher strength of schedule is also really important, because, like we just said, wins matter. And, of course, wins matter, but playing a tough schedule and getting wins in it definitely does matter too. And if you take care of business in the regular season, it bodes well after that. So, of course, for better bowl games and for better positioning in your rankings. So if you're somebody who is looking like you're ranked 11th and you have one of the tougher schedules in all of the Power 5 FBS, you have a really, really prime position to push yourself forward in the rankings and really, really look like a competent player. Like, 11th is only 7 spots away from 4th. And if you just keep winning and doing great things, you can only control what you can control, right? So I'm not saying that you're going to immediately jump 7 spots just because you're winning games and you have a tougher schedule than most, because that's not the only factor when it comes into all these rankings and where to place teams in certain positions. But it definitely means you're going to move up in some degree. And the more you move up, of course, the closer you get to a idea of where you are as a team and as a university. And the more wins brings more revenue and more people pay attention to you, and you have a bigger spotlight. And when you have a bigger spotlight, that means people are going to tune into the big games. And when people tune into the big games, that's where a lot of things are made in one. Now, this is probably the same thing. Like when we looked at what LSU had to go through last year, their first game was against Texas. And that was a big time game for both teams. So being that big on the stage, Texas played pretty well, and LSU had a really, really good game, and it definitely opened people's eyes to what LSU could accomplish that year. You'll see similar things with different teams across the nation, but big games and games that are televised matter a lot, so that's why strength of schedule really does matter, and I always appreciate teams that play harder schedules, because it definitely means it's prove it time for those teams, and that's what college football is all about. How can you prove yourself to be one of the top dogs? And it's about running the table. Can you run the table on a harder schedule? And that's what makes or breaks certain teams, and it separates the kind of the weaker teams from the stronger ones. So we're going to take another break, and coming out of it, we are going to go ahead and talk about what the timetable looks like for college football's return in the 6-week window cycle.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, we're tapping back into the GSMC College Football Podcast, where previously we were talking about strength of schedule for the Pac-12. We also did top 10 players returning to the ACC in 2020, and now we're going to be looking forward to the calendar of 2020 as the NCAA committee recommends a 6-week calendar to start the 2020 college football season on time. So approval to this should come. Well, the approval to this should have came from a Wednesday, and college football's last tedious setups toward on-time return has already been taken, and the NCAA College Football Oversight Committee will submit a detailed 4-phase plan this coming week for football activities beginning in mid-July. The committee will recommend that coaches begin interacting with players on July 13th, with training camp starting on August 7th. Those dates would each be pushed to the week for a handful of teams competing in week 0. So testing for coronavirus is still largely a conference-by-conference enterprise, as it is the possibility of coaches possibly having to wear face masks on the sidelines during games. The Oversight Committee recommendations were shared with the conferences for input before the vote Thursday, and the NCAA Council will be tasked with giving it preseason calendar final approval when it meets on June 17th. So, Oversight Committee Chair Shane Lyons spoke. I think we have vetted it out enough, button up next week so we can move forward. So they all want to move forward, and here's what the calendar preseason for 2020 looks like. So June 1st through 25 is voluntary workouts, and that's voluntary and virtual non-physical activities. And then July 13th onward are team workouts, so weight training, conditioning, and film review. July 24th onward is walkthroughs, team meetings, 24 hours per week and up to 8 hours. And August 7th onward is practice, so preseason practice period. So programs kicking off Labor Day weekend, the traditional week 1 will be allowed 20 hours with players per week from July 24th through August 6th. Those are divided up between 6 hours of walkthroughs, 6 hours of meetings, 8 hours of strength and conditioning work. And the period beginning July 13th is referred to as summer access, which gives players the ability to work without coaches. So traditional two-a-days are not considered, though the NCAA banned them in 2017. NCAA Chief Medical Officer Brian Handline recently said data did not conclude there was a negative impact on head trauma during two-a-days. And Lyons, who is also West Virginia's athletic director, said an extension of the regular season would have required a change of NCAA legislation, and the 2020 season is scheduled to end December 5th, with the Army-Navy game taking place the following week. Extending the 4-game redshirt rule is a consideration that may come at a later date, and there was some thought to that in order to address possible depth issues, and players could potentially play more than 4 games and still retain a year of eligibility. The committee has not yet addressed the issue of fans and stands. Leon said the future is so uncertain that he is not sure he could fill West Virginia's 60,000-seat Billy Pusker Stadium. Attendance restrictions could be determined by the conferences. Even if they did say we could fill the stadium, what percentage of the people interested in coming, he asked. He doesn't believe we're gonna have a 60,000 even if we did allow it to happen, and he doesn't think it could sell out, and they're focusing on the start of the season. So the guidelines include a requirement for teams to practice for 4 weeks before playing their first game, and if teams aren't able to get that much practice, the FBS commissioners have basically already spoken. The 10 conferences may not be in sync in terms of the starting on time, and with those conferences, not all the teams may be on the same page either. Furthermore, do not expect any replacements for the canceled spring games. Schools are allowed to have athletes back on campus June 1st, of course, and several schools began voluntary workouts on Monday. Most programs will begin voluntary workouts by June 15th. So what does all this mean? It means that the committee, the NCAA, are moving forward with making the start date as close to the regular original start date for college football as humanly possible. And, it's taking a risk, right? Nothing is guaranteed. We just saw earlier this weekend that the NBA, although they are scheduled to come back in the late July, is that they are planning to do testing every other day, and they have less people. So everything is still going to have to be extremely tested, you don't want things to get out of hand. And the NBA is incubating itself in one location just to finish off the playoffs. And that's even if that happens, because players are speaking up saying some of them don't want to play due to COVID-19. Some of them don't want to play due to the distraction that it may cause to a lot of the social issues that are plaguing the United States and even the world even. So with that said, college football is in a interesting bubble, and so is NFL for that matter, about how do you get all of these people, coaching staff, players, people who work in the facilities, how do you get all these people tested on a weekly basis that will not hinder the season? So let's say, like, God forbid, right? Let's say Trevor Lawrence gets tested positive for coronavirus. What is going to hold them back from releasing that information? Honestly. And I don't want to make this seem like it'll be a conspiracy, but people will do anything to win, right? People will do anything to get an upper hand, to win, to keep their teams competitive as much as they can. And let's say a big time star. So I guess we'll continue with the Trevor Lawrence debate. If Trevor Lawrence catches coronavirus and he's asymptomatic, that's the worst case scenario for most times, because if you're asymptomatic and you don't show any symptoms, you still carry the virus. You can still, affect people. And that means that you need to stay home. But what if it's a big time game? What if it's any game really that they need Trevor Lawrence to play? He's the best player in college football by far, and you need him to play in order to continue to win. Dabo Swinney would like him to play. And the first thought that a lot of people are going to have, right, is just so many people are going to have, it's going to be really selfish. It's going to be really insensitive to what's going on. But they're going to say, well, if he's asymptomatic and he's showing no symptoms, just stay away from him until the game and whatever the case may be. But, football is a contact sport. They're going to be up close and personal all the time. They're going to be around him all the time. And, that's going to be a big detriment to Clemson if that were to come to the case. So what happens? Do they have to sit him down and put in a replacement to play? And what if they lose? Is that an asterisk game? Like, how does this affect people later on down the line? And some people are going to just say, it's the flu. Stay home. I mean, like, you already stay home. It's the flu, with the flu and things like that. But considering there's no flu shot or there's no corona vaccine shot to take, it will spread rapidly. It's a very, very contagious, virus. So there is no just tough it out, flu game, Michael Jordan stuff. And Michael Jordan had stomach issues. It wasn't the flu. But that's just another thing. So this is not over by a stretch. And although we're pushing forward to college football, and I'm happy that it's trying to come back, a lot of the issues, I don't know what's going to happen with them. And I don't think anybody should pretend that they know what is the right call or anything about this virus. It's better to live in uncertainty and claim that you don't know something than pretending that you do. But we're going to take a final break here, and then we're going to get into our concession confessions. This is the GSMC.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
All right, so this is the GSMC, and we're going to be talking about food trucks for Concession Confessions for the last segment. And food trucks are something that I have come to know quite well, as I used to work in a way that where I'm always around food trucks. I didn't work in food trucks, but I would be one of those guys in one of those event tents that are handing out free prizes, and usually food trucks are around us all the time. So if they're hiring us to be out there, that typically means that food trucks are also being hired to feed customers, to bring people out, and, you know, it's for outreach, it's for bringing customers to whatever event, festival, store opening, you know, sales, whatever the case may be, the food truck is coming. So I've had a lot of the taste of food trucks, and let me tell you something. Food trucks are two things. One, either they're very overrated on the quality of their food. It's very rare to find like a legit, really, really banging food truck. And typically if you live in one area and you're not like super big on traveling outside of your area to go to different states or different functions, and the food trucks are around, you're not going to try a whole lot of different food trucks. Majority of the food truck game is really based off of, going where the people are. So a lot of them drive all over the place to go to where they need to go to make some money. And I respect the hustle, of course, but that just means you're going to be seeing the same food trucks, the same vendors all the time. And I mean it. You'll see them all the time. And what is the worst part about it is that just kind of cuts down on the diversity of what you would think food trucks are supposed to bring to you anyway. And then the second thing, of course, is price. Because it's food on wheels, right? It's not like the prices are any cheaper than going to, a mid-tier restaurant or anything like that. So you're still going to be coming out of pocket quite a bit. Now, sometimes I think that the food for price ratio is just not correct. It just doesn't make sense. And you're just paying for the conveniency of them bringing it to you. But in reality, I mean, some people do come for the food trucks. But if you're just coming for the event, I guess you have to pay the premium for the food, because a lot of times when there's food trucks involved, most of the events are free. If I'm paying to go to an event and then the food trucks are after, like, the food trucks are also heavily priced, I can't blame them for trying to make money, right? This is not saying that I should receive free food, right? That's not what I'm saying. Because, of course, if I go to a game, I have to pay to go to the game. And I also have to pay to buy food at the game. So that would be ridiculous for me to claim that I shouldn't be paying for food to go to any event. Well, let's keep in mind, if you're going to a park event, so if I go to Piedmont Park in Atlanta, and a lot of their events are free to enter. It's a park. You just walk around. But if I had to pay to go in, it's just a different mentality for some reason. And I don't know why that is. It just feels even more violent towards my wallet that I'm paying for X amount of dollars to go into an event. And usually when you pay for events like park events and things like that, there are meal tickets involved and things like that. So this may invalidate that whole ideology. But just something doesn't sit well when you are coughing up an extra $20 for drinks or for food, and just for one person, for food trucks, man. It's crazy. But to get on the actual ideology of food from food trucks, there's a lot of different ones, and they all do different things. So 9 times out of 10, you're not getting a food truck at a major, like a professional level from like NFL, NBA, MLB, all that stuff. You're not seeing a food truck be out there. You may see it for tailgates though. Tailgates and for college games, if they're a small school, we've seen a lot of food trucks for Division IIs in my day and things like that. They definitely do come out. And a lot of the times they will do traditional, stadium food stuff, or they'll get really, really funky with it. And I have to say, from ranking food trucks that for funkiness to traditionals, I think that you kind of have to play the numbers game when it comes to food trucks and the quality. So let's go for like the real common food truck that we see, taco trucks, right? I am a huge, huge supporter of taco food trucks. I love them. I think they're the most diverse food truck subgenre in the game, and they can do a whole bunch of things that a lot of other places don't. So you can have Asian fusion taco food trucks, which typically are what you'll see anyway. And then you'll have traditional taco food trucks, and you'll have taco food trucks that try to add different flavors. So you'll have the Jamaican taco food truck, or the Caribbean cuisine taco food truck, or you'll have the Tex-Mex taco food trucks, or you'll have the West Coast taco food trucks, or you'll have some interesting Southern style taco food trucks that are more, have fried chickens, or they'll have the sides where it's more like the slaw instead of, traditional cilantros and the onion in their tacos, and just all different types of food come on taco trucks. But sometimes the tacos can get a little bit pricey, and you're not getting traditional street tacos are not large items. They're not big, and some people even consider them a snack. So you kind of have to see, is it worth the bang or the buck? And if I'm paying for good money and I'm not doing like a taco food truck festival event, that's different. But if you're not doing that, I tend to try and stay away from them unless I'm just not trying to. If I'm trying to, enjoy myself, I'll go because I enjoy the food more. But if I'm trying to actually eat and, feel full, you got to go to those food trucks that unfortunately sell pretty general stuff, but they give you larger portions, and they have combos that I guess make sense. So you'll see combos that range from $15 to $17, which is pretty much traditional, pretty much how stadium food is to a certain extent, as stadium food in certain areas has definitely decreased as they're trying to bring more people, bring more people to stadiums, two, trying to make people spend more money on food and bring more money within the stadiums as themselves outside of just ticket sales, right? So they make prices for food smaller. I remember the Atlanta Falcons, for example, they dropped the prices of a lot of things. Even hot dogs and hamburgers are like, I think $4 when they used to be like around $6 and $8, and they're really slashing prices to make people feel like it's worth going to games, because as TV broadcasts have been more and more prevalent in our time, more people have said, why should I go to a game when I enjoy the television broadcast presentation of football or whatever sport you're watching way more than just going to the game, because it's less expensive. You have any food that you choose. You can get food delivered, or you can make your own. Why go through all that trouble of paying for parking, going to the game, having to go through concessions and, things basically being shoved in your face as far as seating arrangements and things like that. And, there are some sort of disadvantages of going to games because, it's not like you're going to get the best seat in the house all the time, right? You have to be very fortunate to get that. And, television broadcasts show you the best seat in the house all the time in the comfort of your own home. You can go to the bathroom. You can do all different sort of things in your own home. So with that said, food trucks bring a different element than regular stadium food. Of course, is more, you can have a different variety. It can get really funky, but at the end of the day, you're probably still going to choose the traditional stuff anyway, because you will probably get more bang for your buck, because food trucks aren't any less expensive or even more expensive than what, a traditional, concession stand would offer. And, sometimes I feel like a real shame, a real drag, but that's what it is. But this has been the GSMC College Football Podcast on the GSMC Podcast Network. Please rate, review the podcast, 5 stars, 5 stars. Don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, you name it. We're there. Talk to us, hang out with us, and we'll get back to you. This has been the GSMC. This is Ethan speaking, and I'll see you all next week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network, from football to basketball, baseball to MMA, and even soccer. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts College Football Podcast.